All right. So what's the deal here? So cross-project piping allows you to take values, variable values from one project and pipe them across to a completely different project. Now, here's where I count on you as a researcher to figure out the best use for this, but I'll try to demonstrate a couple different ways that this could be used, and then you can figure out ways if it works for you ever in the future. So I built two projects, cross-project piping 1 and cross-project piping 2. So I figured the point of this, if you look at the designer, so there's a screening form here, and in the cross-project piping 2, there's different instruments, just to show that you could collect other data here unrelated to data that you collected here. So you could have other types of instruments. But in order to demonstrate this, this is really pretty basic. So let's just take a look at the screening form here in Project 1. And there's a variety of fields I stuck in here. And, I'll do some data entry so that you can see, but this is really very basic. But there's a first name and a last name here. Over here on the second project, where there's all this, there's a screening form here. And this screening form just has that record ID and the first name and the last name. And then, like I said, it has all the other instruments that could be related to this. So what you do is on the project that you're going to be piping to, and I'm going to be piping from 1 to 2. So I'm going to add an external module called cross-project piping. Okay, or in your case, you're going to request that module. It does not live on Project 1, so no modules required. So on 2, you want to configure this here on the configuration for the module. So I started filling this out so that, to save a little bit of time, but the source project, I could have selected from any project that I've ever created. I selected cross-project piping 1, which is the one over here on the other tab. Then you want to pick the field you want to match. Okay, so I want to match the record IDs from this project. Now, below that, you can see that you can match to other projects, and you can add projects here and pipe from different projects and pipe different variables. So, but you'll understand this a little better as we view it, but this alternate field does exist, and there are the README looks like this, and this explains the alternate source match field just a little better. So use if you want to find more about it, use the view documentation option for the cross-project piping. So what I want to do is pipe the value of the variable that's in the first name field in this first project over to my current project, piping 2. I also want to pipe the field last name. And there are some options here, auto pipe on matching form, excuse me, or piping button at the top of the form. I'm going to start with a piping button at the top of the form because I think it is helpful for you to see what's happening. It also gives you a little more control. And then allow piping on forms with a status or less. My reading, I haven't played with this enough, but my reading seems to imply that incomplete is the status that you need to be at. But I might try to play with this while we're doing this just so I can demonstrate it. So that's all there is to it, really. I'm going to save it. Now, in practice, it's a little bit squirrely. So I'm going to add a record here. On record 1, I'll add a new record. And I'll add and male, non-Hispanic, white. And I'm going to leave this incomplete for now. And I'll save and exit my form. So I've got this record here. So I'm going to come over to my other project. I'm going to add a record, add a new record. I've got all these different instruments, so I'm going to go to my screening form. Nothing seems to have happened. But if I save and stay on this form, notice I get a button at the top that allows me to initiate data piping, and if I click on it, it will automatically populate with the first name and last name from this other record. So now if I save, I can make this complete, save and exit, and come back, you know, now I've got this. So I can go ahead and keep my record IDs and certain data fields synchronized. So I'm going to come back over here. The thing about this is that you can kind of see in doing this, what it does is connects the record IDs. So if you have put a record into this project, so let's say I put in record number 2, and I come here and on my own, and I put and say it's complete, save it. Okay, so now got this value in here, and come back over to my first project, and I add a new record and add something here. Put in a few fields. Leave that incomplete for now. I come back over to my second project. I've got Liam Neeson in here. I save and stay on this. I'm going to go back to my add edit records. Select record 2. Open this up. All right. Change this to incomplete. All right, so look, now I can initiate data piping and I can overwrite the value in record 2. So it is interesting. It does have to be incomplete for that piping to show up. So you could do it record by record. However, it doesn't mean that you're synchronous between the two projects then. So now you have an orphan record in one, or you would have an orphan record in one or two if you didn't actually do the data piping. So I was thinking about this and trying to think of, well, this is great if you want to keep this fully synchronous with record IDs and you don't ever want to add your own ID over here with data that's not in one. So that would work. But what if you wanted to have you wanted to use the IDs that are here but have some extra IDs in this project? And I was thinking, well, one thing you could do is in your project setup, you turned off the auto numbering. Okay, and come over to my other project and do the same. Okay, so now I'm going to just create my own ID. So if I create something 0078 or 0075 for an ID here, and I put and I save and exit my form here, and then come over to the cross project piping project 2 and add a record here, and I say 0075 here. Then I open my screening form, save and stay. It's going to bring up my button and it will pull it in. Okay, well that's good. But now I can come here to my records, add 0078, let's say, and open my screening form, and I can enter anything here. And the fact that it's complete means I don't get the option to pipe, but if I make it incomplete, I do get my data piping option. But there's nothing, it overwrites it with blanks. Yeah. So that's no good. I didn't think of that. So again, this is the key. I mean, it would let you add some different fields here, and you wouldn't have to worry about and if you have them as complete, you don't have to worry about them being overwritten, because once they're complete, they won't sync up with the other records. So it does allow you to do that. And again, by creating your own ID, that also kind of allows you to have data in one project that's not in the other. But you did want to keep them synchronous somehow. And this is just on this particular, you know, these are the fields that I could think of, like first name and last name. But as long as the record ID is the same, then they're going to match up, and you do risk overwriting. So just so you see how that works, if we select that other option, because this is kind of a little bit crazy too. I'm going to come back down here to where the piping button at top of form and change this to auto pipe. Okay. So I'll come to my project here, and let me turn on auto numbering again. Okay, so we've got auto numbering in both of them. I'm going to come here I'll add a new record, 76, because it's the next one after 0075. And I'll leave that incomplete. Come over to my other project, add a record, add a new record. So this is 79, which isn't going to do me any good. So going to save this a minute. Come back in here. Rename my record to 76 so we can demonstrate this. And then open this back up. And save and stay. And I've got 76 here, populated over here now. But you didn't see the button at the top. All I did was do the save and exit and save and stay, and it all happened. So the one last thing I wanted to test is adding a new record and make this complete. See what happens here. And again, I need to make this 77 so that they match. And immediately, as soon as it did, it piped it right over. So it piped right away, knowing that it was in the other record. So as soon as I added it, it was there. So that's cross-project piping, and what you can get out of it. How you use it would be kind of up to you, and I leave it to people who are doing research to come up with the best way for that to work. Oh yeah, quick question.
Most important, obviously, the fields have to match. So if I, for example, wanted to, the first project was like a pre-screening or like a potential participants registry, and then the second was like a, randomized participants. Like Amy Adams used to be a potential participant, now she's randomized into XYZ study. So the screening form, the instrument could be named something completely different. It's just the fields have to match exactly.
Exactly. The only requirement is that in the designer, your variable names must be identical. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters. And then that and the record ID. So it has to be a record ID, or it could be subject number, which is one of the points that I think it was making in this external module. So if you had record ID in one and subject number in the other, then you could put subject number. If you could have here, you would put subject number and match the fields that way. So
is there a limit for how many elements you can pipe into the second project? For example, we have, you know, screening for it, but if there's like an address label or subject contact and it has, you know, repeating fields, is there a limit or is it just match the one, you know,
Yeah,
to one instrument?
yeah, and then you wouldn't have to do duplicate entry.
Yeah, so it'll populate anything that has those fields. If I had like 10 instruments in the second project that for some reason had the first and the last name, it'll pipe everything in, like every single.
Only if you identify it in the configuration. So we only identified these two fields, but if you wanted to add other fields that you wanted to pipe over, you could.
Sure.
So if you had gender and race and you wanted to do all that, you could do that.
Right, but I mean, I guess it's not limited to just one instrument in the second project.
Oh, no, not at all.
So
You could pipe something.
for some reason, I had 30 instruments that had first name and last name in the second project.
Yes.
It just automatically pipe in those 30 instruments the first and last name. I don't have to figure each instrument in the second project.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
Just the variable name. That's all that matters.
Okay. So there's no limit.
All right.
Really cool.
Yeah, no limit.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for asking.